I'm Brian Tate. I am the Vice President and Chief Development Officer at York County Community Foundation. Today's topic is tools of the trade, and we're focusing the conversation today on irrevocable vehicles. And so the three of us will be talking about those that are irrevocable. First, I want to thank my colleagues for being here. Our President Jane Conover and Lisa Levin, our Vice President of Community Investment, are joining me. I want to thank them for helping me because together we at the Community Foundation are creating a vibrant York County. We do that by engaging donors, providing community leadership, and investing in high-impact initiatives while building endowment for future generations. We're very excited about that, and part of that excitement is that in this room, this great group of people, I've just counted 9 of you have Heritage Fund agency endowments with us. About half of you are advisors, about the other half of you are representing your nonprofits, and I'm so excited that those of you representing nonprofits have an endowment with the Community Foundation. And so that partnership is what makes Leave a Legacy so valuable, that professional advisors and nonprofits come together so that we can advise our constituents, our clients and donors throughout the community to make great choices to ensure that our community is a vibrant place, so that it does support the greatest needs of York County forever. And so we continue to work together and have that great partnership together. The packets that I provided to each of you, I know you're not going to go through them now, but when you take them away and look at them later, inside you'll see our 2015 annual report, which we're very proud of, and you'll get to take a look at some wonderful infographics about how the Community Foundation does its work, but also about its growth over the past 55 years. In addition, you'll see in that packet fact sheets about all of the different types of assets that donors can use to create and build funds at the Community Foundation. And we're very proud that we can work with each of you professional advisors and your clients and each of you nonprofit organizations to ensure that we never have to tell a client or a donor no, so that we can always assist someone to give that gift, to leave that legacy, to ensure that what they're interested in doing is possible. And so, for instance, if there is a particular asset type or a particular vehicle that you are not set up to do or to facilitate, the Community Foundation is, and we're your partner in philanthropy in that way. And so it's your opportunity to collaborate with us to if you're an organization, if you're one of the organizations not represented here today that does not have a fund at the Community Foundation, maybe it's time to create that relationship and create that fund. And then all of these tools are available to your organization so that any asset type is something that you can use the Community Foundation so that your donor has the opportunity to create that connection, give that gift, and be satisfied in providing that funding opportunity for your organization. The packet also includes fact sheets on all the different types of funds that you can create at the Community Foundation. And I just want to tell you quickly about those 5 different types of funds that we are creating to create a vibrant York County. First is the Fund for York County, and that is the fund where we can create the greatest opportunities here in York County. That is where we are providing those high-impact initiatives and providing community leadership within York County. And so, as Bob spoke about the campaign that United Way is currently in the process of completing, the Community Foundation reaches out throughout the year to donors who want to build that fund for York County, so that we have those dollars in perpetuity that we can use to be at the table to create change, to ensure that we're addressing those most important, those greatest needs in York County, and ensure that we're solving those solutions, we're creating those solutions here in our community. The next type is the field of interest fund, and that's where a donor specifically wants to address an issue area, but isn't as interested in the particular nonprofit that would be delivering those services. So the Community Foundation has identified 8 York-like fields, things like arts and culture, children and youth, aging, education, health and human needs, the environment, things of that nature, where people are working together, they're giving gifts, they're creating their own named fund in those particular areas, and then those funds are endowed forever, and folks know that their fund will always support those areas. Many people are familiar with the donor advised fund, where annually people can recommend grants. Our board will approve those grants if they are appropriate, and those can go to any nonprofit organization throughout our community, our region, our country, to support the charities that they're most interested in. A designated fund is when a donor is interested in specific nonprofit organizations and they want annually their fund to support those exact nonprofit organizations. And then finally, I mentioned before, the Heritage Fund, the agency endowment for organizations like yours. That's when you create your own endowment at the Community Foundation, and we're thrilled to host 150 nonprofit organizations who have those types of endowments at the Community Foundation. So that's why I'm here, because I lend that expertise to this panel, and I'll be glad to talk about the different types of irrevocable vehicles that are part of the tools of the trade. Tom.
Thank you, Barton. My name is Tom Shorp. I'm an attorney in York. I am an attorney at the Stockett Leader Law Firm and a member of the estate practice group at that firm. Our firm believes in the philosophy of focusing in a certain practice area. So again, estate planning, estate administration, trust matters is what I work in. This whole area has become much more complicated over the years, and it used to be that I could practice in a lot of different areas, but I can't, so I focus in this. We have several attorneys in our firm who just do estate planning matters. A couple of comments with regard to estate planning and how assets do pass, and maybe I'm getting perhaps a little bit ahead of myself, but it's more than just a will that provides how a person's assets pass upon death. A person could have a will that can be changed, of course, anytime prior to death. The person could have a trust agreement, which also can be changed unless it's irrevocable. And as to irrevocable trust, it used to be they were just that. You couldn't change them. There was a trust act, though, passed in Pennsylvania about 10 years ago that do allow trusts that are irrevocable to be revocable. And if the person who set up the trust and the beneficiaries all agree, in many situations the trust can be modified. Another area where assets pass upon death are through beneficiary designations, beneficiary designation forms. And one area that is critically important nowadays in estate planning is beneficiary designation forms for retirement funds. And I know it's not a subject for this session, but just very briefly, it again is very important to have your beneficiary designation forms completed. And very often it's not good to have your estate as beneficiary, because then you would have a lot of income taxable in the estate. Also, if you have a client who is interested in charitable giving, retirement funds are an ideal vehicle to accomplish that. If somebody has an IRA, have it paid to the charity if there's a charitable intent. It is really the ideal vehicle. Another thing I wanted to mention is how to implement these different plans that we're talking about, charitable gift annuities and charitable remainder trust and other things. And there are some charities in York County that are equipped to handle these. They're complicated, they're involved, and they require a lot of work. And the ones that I have worked with in the York area have been very, very good at it. But there are many that can't. And the Community Foundation is a tremendous resource. And I have sent countless clients to the Community Foundation to implement a charitable gift annuity or a charitable remainder trust. And they have the resources and the ability to accomplish that. So I would keep them in mind. If you have somebody that is interested in one of these types of vehicles and you aren't able to accomplish it through your own organization. So, Dan.
I forgot why I'm here. Oh, no, wait. Well, I'm here because the topic tools of the trade, and when they said tools, someone said, ask Dan to talk. So that's why I'm here. I've been with Northwestern Mutual for 43 years. I just started 43 years ago. I'm a financial advisor. I have my two partners who came today, Jim Gano and Phil Woods. Just raise your hands so I know who they are, so everybody knows. So I have them here for a specific purpose, and that is when I start talking about my topic of life insurance, they're going to block the door. I gave a talk several years ago about life insurance, and I was the last person to talk, and when I got to talk, half the room left. So they're here to protect that today. Right? Anyway, I know my jokes don't fly. So, tough. So I'm going to get started on talking about life insurance. I'm going to talk about that first, so I'm going to stand if that's all right. And I have handouts for everybody at the end called charitable life insurance. I think I have one for everybody that they can take with them. So let's first define the terms of a life insurance contract. This won't take too long, but basically there's the insured. So here's a life insurance policy. The insured, I may be the insured. Who owns the policy? The policy owner may be me also. It could be Vicki, it could be Ted, it could be Jim or somebody else. But the owner of the policy has all the rights in the contract to be able to change beneficiaries, to change ownership, to take money out of the policy, to take paid up, to do anything they want to do because they have the contractual right in the policy. Usually it's the same person. The premium payer is the person who's going to get the bills and pay the premium. Again, a typical life insurance policy, it's the same person in most situations. All right. The beneficiary is the person that receives the proceeds of death. So those are the basic concepts about who the people are. Everybody thinks that there's only like two people involved, and there could be several people involved. In a charitable situation, which we'll get to in a second, there may be different beneficiaries, different owners of the policies. Right? So charitable life insurance concepts, let's think about a couple of concepts here that are applicable to all life insurance, but in particular to the charitable life insurance concept. So what are the odds of me dying? Maybe I want to hazard a guess? 100%, okay, all right, okay. So the proceeds are generally received income tax-free. Then this is a contract, this is a financial tool, or potential topic, or product that matures by event, not by time. So if I have $1 million in my estate and the market crashes, I only have $500,000 left, my time didn't help me out. Whereas if I have $1 million life insurance policy, when I die, it pays $1 million, no matter when I die. Life insurance proceeds with a named beneficiary, as Tom was talking about, pass outside the probated estate. And I have a letter here of one I did several years ago, and this particular person died on December 30th, 2008. I have a letter here dated January 8th, 2009 from the charitable organization out in California, thanking me for the letter and telling me about the passing, and I sent them a beneficiary claim statement. And by February 12th, they'd received the $75,000 or $80,000, I think it was $80,000 by that point in time. So I make that point because it didn't go through the probated estate. They weren't waiting for the estate to be settled. They got their money pretty quickly. It's also not subject to remaining assets issue. So again, I'll take my example. If I say, in my will, I'm going to give 10% of my estate to the American Cancer Society, as an example. What's $1 million? And Vicki thinks she's going to get $100,000. But by the time I die, hopefully really late in life, the amount of money I have left, because maybe I had expenses for medical expenses or whatever, and income needs, maybe there's only $500,000 left. Then the benefit you get is only 10%, it's $50,000. Let's say I had to spend all my money down and became a Medicaid patient. You may not get anything at all. So there's no certainty of money in a will that will go to a beneficiary to a charitable unless it's irrevocable. Okay? All right? And the other thing I think that's important to note is that life insurance beneficiaries is a private matter. It's not subject to public. Again, my next door neighbor died. He had $9 million. I didn't know it. And I also blew that because we shared a snowblower. And before he died, he wanted to know if I wanted money for gas. And I said, yeah, why don't you give me 50,000 or so? He could have endowed that to me. But anyway, but everybody knows where his money went, because it's public knowledge. But beneficiaries of a life insurance policy are private, and they go directly to that charitable organization without having anyone else know about it. Right? So, having said that, there are two basic ways life insurance can be used for a charitable organization. This is a beneficiary change form. All right? I'll give you an example of this. All right? I've named on one of my life insurance policies the Rotary Club of York as the beneficiary. It's not a deductible expense to me because the Rotary Club of York is not a 503c. It's just that I'm giving them because I think they're a good organization. But if I get angry with them or get pissed off at them, I can change that beneficiary. So I don't think it's a completed gift when I change the beneficiary to a charitable organization, unless I make it irrevocable, and then maybe it doesn't fly in Pennsylvania anymore. All right? And again, maybe my family needs change. So most charities don't look at this as a completed gift because they may never get the money from that point of view. The second way is to change the ownership to the charitable organization. So here's this life insurance policy. All right? And by the way, I'm picking on Vicki here. She is now going to be owner of the life insurance policy, and she's going to have a beneficiary form as the owner of the policy or the charitable organization to fill out. Now, who do you think the American Cancer Association or Society is going to name as beneficiary? Themselves, okay? Who can change the beneficiaries on this policy I've given to the American Cancer Society? American Cancer Society. The only person that can change them. I can't change it. I don't care what they do. I may not like him anymore for some reason, but I'm stuck. I've given it away to him. I've given 2 policies to Gettysburg College. I'm exactly happy with them, but I can't do anything about it. Okay. All right? But I've given the policy to them. They have a right to name beneficiaries in that situation. So that can be considered a completed gift. They have access to the cash values in the policy, but it's their responsible to make the payments now. So there's 2 ways to do this, one a preferred way and one a way I wouldn't suggest anyone do it. I've given the policy to them, and there's still premiums due, although I hope to give them a paid-up policy. But if there are premiums due, they're the ones who have to pay the premium. They're looking for me to make gifts to them of that premium payment. If the premium's $1,000 a year and I give them a check for $1,000, I can deduct that because it's going to the American Cancer. Right? If, on the other hand, I make a check payable to Northwestern Mutual for $1,000, I have to prove it's actually going for a charitable cause. I don't want to go through that. So I'd much rather give them the check to them, and they write the check to Northwestern Mutual. Makes a lot more sense that way. Any questions so far? There'll be a test in this later on. Okay, all right. Charity can also, the death benefit is guaranteed as long as the premiums are paid. So we went back this issue about what's left over in a will. We don't care because the American Cancer has the policy. We don't care what happens to my assets. It's irrelevant because they own the policy, they own the contract, they have rights to do what they want to do. They have a right to take money out of the policy if they want to. I don't think it's a smart idea, but they have a right to do that. Right? And if the policy is surrendered, the charity, the gain in the contract may be subject to unreimbursed business expense tax, the UBIT. Right? Now, so when I gave that policy to them, what benefits do I have? What tax deduction do I get for that? The answer is it's my basis in a policy. I happen to bring along 2 policy statements I have. Both were purchased about the same time, and they turn a little differently for various reasons. But they're both worth about a little more than $75,000. My basis in this policy is $838. This one's worth a little more than $75,000, and my basis in this policy is $10,300. Now, which one do you think I'm going to give to the charitable organization if I gave one to him? Which one do you think I would give? I should ask Kevin. He should know, right? Which one? The one has a base of $800, the one has a base of $10,000. The death benefits are the same, the cash values are similar. The higher one, because I get a bigger deduction. Okay? So I'm giving this policy to them and say, good, I get a $10,000 deduction. Okay? You should always consult with your tax advisor about these things. Right? The second way of making the charity the policy owner is that Vicki calls me up and says, Dan, we like you. We want to make sure that we like your gifts to continue. Here's a life insurance application. We need you to sign this because we're going to apply for life insurance on your life. Obviously, I've agreed to do this beforehand. Okay? I've agreed to get examiners to go through medical questionnaires or whatever. But now, again, I have never owned this policy. They've owned it from the start. They name themselves beneficiaries. They got to remember that I have to continue to give them gifts to pay the premium. So where this fits in, I think, in a classic way is, let's say that I'm giving $4,000 a year to this organization, right? And they come to me and say, we'd like you to endow your gift. Well, what do you mean? Well, you're getting pretty old, Maybe if we had $100,000 of life insurance on your life, then when you die, we get the $100,000, and at 4%, we continue to get $4,000 a year. So my $4,000 gift that I've been giving ends when I die. It doesn't if I've endowed the gift of a life insurance policy. So that's a use that charitable organizations might want to use in that situation. Again, I've given 2 policies to Gettysburg College, and I've named a benefit as they own those policies, and I have another life insurance policy where Rotary Club of York is the named beneficiary. And I should point out that if I'm going to do this, again, if I've been giving them $4,000 a year and the policy premium is going to be $6,000 a year, I have to increase my contributions to $10,000. This should not be done in lieu of what I've been giving them every year anyway. So you've got to convince your donor to step up the increase. But the advantage is that if I live 20 years and I paid $6,000, and I died, there's $100,000 coming to you. It's not been a bad deal for them, quite frankly. But I'm getting an increased deduction because I've increased my gift from $4,000 to $10,000 to include the premium. So I get a bigger deduction for that. I think that's all I wanted. I'll be back later on to talk about the wealth replacement. Any questions so far? I was that good? Yes?
You were saying about, is that just like a good faith thing that the donor would agree to pay the premiums? Or is there anything?
Well, if you own if your organization owns the policy, you've got to have worked with this individual to understand that. By the way, Dan, we're buying this $100,000 policy on you, and it's going to cost $6,000 a year. We expect you to continue what you're contributing and the $6,000 to make this thing work. Again, it's got to be a donor that really likes your organization and has the money to do these things and realizes the value of that increased value of the gift. You get a multiple effect of that gift. So that $6,000 extra becomes $100,000. And that $4,000 I've been giving is perpetual, is in perpetuity at that point in time. Does that answer your question?
But if the organization, say, makes you mad, you could say, well, I'm done with that.
You take paid up insurance. So Gettysburg College, they're taking paid up insurance on the 2 policies. The death benefit was originally $100,000, now it's $56,000. And there are times I think they can't wait until I die. But it's not in my will. And they're going to get the money pretty quickly. Okay? I'm sorry. Yes, back here. You had a question? Somebody else had their hand up back here? Okay.
I just have a comment to make.
Sure, please.
We have a policy that someone gave to the American Cancer Society. And when the premium is due, the donor and the Cancer Society both get a copy of the invoice for the whatever's owed. But he is using somehow the dividends from the insurance to cover some of the cost of the
premium. And these 2 policies, I don't know, it's obviously a mutual company. Okay.
I don't even know what company
Okay.
it is.
Well, in these 2 examples here, this one policy, the premiums are both about $900 a year. My dividend on these policies is $1,400 and $1,200. So the dividend's enough to pay the premium. So my dividends, if I've given the policy to you, one of these policies to you, I'm going to have the dividend. You can choose the dividend to pay up the premium. If I say I'm not going to pay premiums anymore, you can use the dividend. If this policy's been around long enough, you can say I'm going to use the dividend to pay the premium. Or you could surrender dividends inside the policy. Now, there's some subject to dividend changes. But this is not a universal life policy, which can be subject to costs in the policy that people don't see at the beginning of it. So the whole life policies are guaranteed. The premium is guaranteed, the death benefit is guaranteed. Great question. So I asked Vicki before what's missing here.
Life insurance.
Bingo. Okay. All right. Any other questions? I'll be back.
Just a few other quick things with regard to giving through a will or living trust. Again, a lot of times people make their gifts to charity through their will, and they can give a specific dollar amount. And I find typically if there is a dollar amount given to charity, there's usually multiple charities that are given dollar amounts. Or it can be a portion of the residue of the estate. And the will, of course, can be changed at any time before a person's passing, and it can be done by a codicil or a new will. I actually do very few codicils to wills nowadays because it's so easy just to redo the will. On the living trust, just maybe a little bit of definition there. A living trust is a term commonly used now where somebody sets up a trust and they name themselves as trustee. And it's an ineffective will substitute. And it's a living trust, also known as a revocable trust, but it's one and the same. It can be changed, revoked, modified at any time, typically. And if somebody sets up a irrevocable trust, again, there are possibilities where that can be changed, but they're very technical and they're difficult, and oftentimes it requires going into court. So it's not a simple thing, and it requires a lot of examination and exploration before it can be done. And then thirdly would be through a beneficiary designation form or through a transfer on death or payable on death designation. A lot of times you see with brokerage firms and others, banks, they allow for a transfer on death provision in the for the account, and assets can pass that way. I would caution clients to be careful to make sure that it doesn't distort the rest of their estate plan. If they have their assets passing according to their will to certain family members, and then they do a transfer on death designation, that may unwittingly change their estate plan in a way that they don't want. And again, with regard to retirement funds, the beneficiary designation forms are critically important. Even if there's not a charity, it's very necessary to make sure that they're carefully completed. But for charitable gifts, it's an ideal vehicle.
For those of you who are taking notes, we are going to follow the order in the Tools of the Trade brochure. So next is the charitable gift annuity.
Brian, can I add one thing? I'm sorry, I just thought it. So I've had people come to me and say, I've got this old life insurance policy. It's not worth much. It's $10,000 or $20,000. What should I do with it? And again, a lot of times there's taxable ordinary income if the policy gets surrendered. If they give it to a charitable organization, they avoid that completely, and the charity now owns that policy. So I don't know if you've come across that, but it's really overlooked by a lot of lawyers and financial advisors and by charitable organizations. Is ask your older clients if they've got a life insurance policy they no longer want. If there are a lot of them out there, rather surrender it and pay the tax, why don't give it to a charitable organization? So, sorry.
Not a problem. So again, to follow along, the next item is charitable gift annuity. Of the nonprofits in the room, how many of you have a charitable gift annuity program? Raise your hand. Okay, so you haven't all raised your hand, but I did note before that all of you, except for maybe one or two, have a fund at the Community Foundation, so actually you should all raise your hand. If you have a fund at the Community Foundation, you actually do have a charitable gift annuity program. We create charitable gift annuities at York County Community Foundation, so any of your donors could in fact use the Community Foundation to create a charitable gift annuity. The great value about a charitable gift annuity is that it's really attractive to certain members of our community. Now keep in mind there is risk involved with the charitable gift annuity because of it being a contract, not being a trust. Because the donor tends to be older for a charitable gift annuity, and because nonprofit organizations with a program tend to have an age limit for those programs. Ours at the Community Foundation is 60 before we'll consider a charitable gift annuity. That's based on the risk that we're taking for creating that CGA, because in creating that contract, we are guaranteeing that income to that individual. Again, the CGA is not based on the market return. The market return is going to hopefully grow the fund, grow the gift that's given to your charity if you're investing it. Hopefully you are. But it's not going to guarantee the income that you're providing to that donor, because your contract is spelling out the exact income you're providing based on the rate that's provided based on their birth date. Most organizations use the calculations from the American Council of Gift Annuities, the illustrations that we use, whether you're using PG Calc or Crescendo or some other tool, that's the calculations that they're using. But the charitable gift annuity is what's often called a win-win-win, and that's because it's providing 3 wins. It's providing that donor an opportunity of the tax benefit of giving a gift. So when they are providing, they're giving that gift to your organization, so you're in turn providing them a tax benefit for their gift. Then they're getting the win of income for the rest of their life. And then they're also getting the win of the remainder of those dollars after their lifetime being used for the charitable benefit that they've intended, whether that's an endowed fund at the Community Foundation or for your particular organization. Now, again, the risk that's involved, it's based on how long they live. Actuarial tables are used to determine the payout and what the income is going to be. But for example, Gil and Sally Rothrock, they created a CGA at the Community Foundation that's to benefit our fund for York County. Gil's a retired doctor from WellSpan. Sally's a retired nurse from WellSpan. For them, they're getting income for the rest of their lives. After their lifetime, the remainder will be to benefit the greatest needs of our community. What a wonderful opportunity for them. They're getting a much higher return than they were on these assets that were previously invested in CDs. What's the return that we get from CDs these days? What would you say? 0.25%, 0.5%? Using the table that's provided, your donor could be receiving anywhere from 4 to 8% based on the date of their birth. That is a much better deal for them. And if they're charitably inclined, knowing that it's going to benefit the mission of the organization they care about. So if you're not currently providing charitable gift annuities as one of your tools, you should be. And if you didn't think you could, let's have a conversation later, because you certainly could be.
Maybe just to add a few points, I think that the charitable gift annuities are one of the greatest techniques that there is. And it's simple, pretty straightforward, and as Brian says, it's a win-win for everybody. A few, or maybe a concrete example, I had a client who came in a few years ago, and this person was a widower and no children, very few family members, a few nephews and nieces that weren't very close. And the person wanted to make 2 gifts to charity, $25,000 each. And I try to listen to the client and hear what they're really saying and acquire information from them as to how to best develop their plan. And I went through their financial information, and it came out that the person had over $100,000 in their checking account, earning about 1/10 of 1%. And I said, what if you were to set up a charitable gift annuity and you get an immediate income tax deduction, you get a guaranteed return for the rest of your life, the balance is going to go to the charity, it's out of your estate, and the person ended up putting in over $100,000 into this charitable gift annuity, that this person is still living, and it continues to pay this person over 8% a year. And it's, again, just a tremendous technique to use and to utilize. And I believe any plan giving is important for charitable organizations to secure their future, but things like this can really help you out a lot.
The next item in the tools of the trade book is the deferred gift annuity. It's the exact same vehicle, and I'll come right back to your question, Jen. It's the same vehicle, except you're actually deferring it for a period of time. And the reason for doing that is you're gazing into the crystal ball and you're figuring out exactly what date you as the donor are going to pass away. Well, of course we can do that. No, we can't. But you're going to take that risk and you're going to determine what's more important for me. Is it that I'd like to get the higher income, so I want the higher percentage? So by putting off this income by a year or 2 years or 10 years or whatever it is, I'm going to get that higher percentage of income. Or is it that my asset that I'm giving is real estate? Actually, I'm working with Vicki right now with a donor who wanted to give a gift of real estate that the American Cancer Society wanted to receive but was complicated. So we're working together. And it's a great opportunity for us to forge a wonderful relationship. And so in this instance, the deferred gift annuity seems like it's the right vehicle because we don't know when that real estate is actually going to sell. And so by taking that additional risk of deferring the gift annuity for a year or two, then we will know we hope we will know what the sale price is of that real estate, so that then we can base the amount of the gift annuity on the actual sale price versus some made-up figure, because we certainly want to provide for that donor the higher amount if possible. So there are many different reasons why you might use the deferred gift annuity, but again, it's a tool in your toolbox, and it's an opportunity for a donor to say, yeah, I could put off receiving income for some years if I could get an extra percent. That would benefit me better after I've turned 70. I'm going to work until I'm 70. So sure, I can defer. Jen, you had a question.
You actually answered it.
Oh, fantastic. I'm glad I answered your question. Are there any other questions about charitable gift annuities? Okay, fantastic.
The pooled income fund is a type of charitable remainder trust, and Brian's going to talk about that in a few minutes. And essentially, it's a form of a charitable remainder trust involving multiple donors. The donor makes a gift to one trust, which is then pooled with gifts from other trusts or from other donors. And when one of those donors dies, his share is severed from the pooled income fund. I think what I would do at this point is just be aware of the concept. And it's a lot of what we're talking about here today. There's a lot of somewhat complicated ideas. Keep it simple. And my clients don't want to hear about all the complicating pieces. They want to know, how is it going to affect them, and how is it going to affect the charity that they care about? So I think the important point is to be aware of the concept, aware of all the different concepts that we're talking about, and to maybe be able to apply some of this to everyday situations.
So that leads us into the conversation about the charitable remainder trust. And it seems very similar to the charitable gift annuity, so the concepts are somewhat the same, except the charitable remainder trust is really geared toward the more market-savvy donor, because it is not a contract, it is a trust, and it does rely on the ups and downs of the market. So for somebody who is very interested in that guaranteed income, they want to make sure they get the same amount every quarter, the charitable gift annuity is your vehicle. For somebody who doesn't mind that income being different each quarter, each year, then the charitable remainder trust could be the right vehicle for them. Because while the illustration will provide the percentage of what the income will be based on their birth date, it's actually a percentage of the return that's provided from the market. So you see how that's different. One is a very specific income amount, the other is a percentage of the return based on the market. And so in a case like this, your donor has to understand that difference. They have to realize that by entering the trust, they do have the ability to create some change. While their gift is irrevocable, they do have the ability to maybe change the beneficiary. So at the Community Foundation, when we have somebody who creates a charitable remainder trust with us, they may not ask for their resources back. They've created that trust, but their future fund, maybe they might say, oh, I've fallen out of favor with this organization or that organization. I would prefer to maybe name the fund for York County or this organization or that organization. They have the ability to add beneficiaries or subtract beneficiaries or change beneficiaries. So it provides flexibility, whereas the charitable gift annuity is a contract. It's set in stone. It cannot be changed. It's definitely irrevocable. This charitable remainder trust is irrevocable with some nuance. So again, this is providing opportunity for you to work with your donor to find the best opportunity for them. And an example that I can give is, families are often connected with the Community Foundation, and we try to build those relationships. One of the stories that we talk about a lot is Dr. Isabel Anderson, when she wrote a handwritten will on her deathbed, leaving her estate to the Community Foundation to build our first $1 million fund that benefits agriculture and land preservation here in York County. Her cousin, Kerr Anderson, worked with their attorney, John Miller, to fight in court to ensure that that handwritten will would be upheld. And through all of that wonderful work to uphold that will, Kerr became a fan of the Community Foundation. He then created 2 charitable remainder trusts at the foundation, one for each of his children. So again, these vehicles, you can create them for yourself and a spouse, or for other people, which is a wonderful vehicle to consider. The donors can create these vehicles to provide income for other people. So Kerr created one $500,000 charitable remainder trust for his son and one for his daughter. And so they're providing income for them during their lifetimes, and then after their lifetimes, they will create the Kerr and Margaret Anderson Fund at the Community Foundation that will also be agriculture and land preservation funds. So then we'll have these 2 wonderful funds that will support that particular field of interest in our community forever. Any questions about the charitable remainder trust?
Basically, the difference between a uni trust and an annuity trust is this. With a uni trust, the payment is recalculated each year. With the annuity trust, it's set, and it continues at that same amount year after year. Maybe 2 quick, concrete examples. One, I had a situation a few years ago where a client had a lot of savings bonds, a couple $100,000 of savings bonds, and had over $100,000 of accumulated income in those bonds. And not only that, the bonds were no longer paying any interest. And there's $100,000 subject to income tax. So what did we do? This person had charitable interest and had a child and a daughter and son-in-law and wanted to benefit them. So what we did is we cashed in the bonds, incurred $100,000 of income, and we set up a charitable remainder unitrust for the joint lives of the daughter and son-in-law. And we matched it up exactly so that the income tax deduction for the charitable remainder trust matched with the income incurred from cashing in the savings bonds. And now the daughter and son-in-law have income for the rest of their lives. But it's a situation that just kind of worked out. And the thing is to try to be attuned to these types of situations, not to get bogged down or locked into all the technicalities, but to look at the concepts, look at the ideas. I had another one where this individual had a very successful business and had one employee in the business. And the owner of the business was elderly and had been paying, in effect, a pension to this long-time loyal employee for many, many years. And this person said, well, what happens if I become incapacitated? You know, who's going to continue to pay this exact amount that I have each year to go out to this loyal employee? What we did is we set up a charitable remainder trust, and we set it up as an annuity trust. So this exact same amount is paid out to this loyal employee for the rest of that person's life. And not only that, there was a big income tax deduction that we obtained when it was set up, and it benefited, it will benefit ultimately 3 charities that this person very much cared about. So much the same as with the charitable gift annuities, it's a win-win-win situation. But you have to kind of look at the circumstances. I try to be a good listener and hear what people have to say, and I try to acquire what I think is the necessary financial information. Actually, I spend more time probably than, I'm sure, than other attorneys in my office meeting with clients, because I think it's important to develop a relationship with the client, but also some of the more obscure information that you hear can be very relevant. Like with this person that I found out, well, I have a long-term employee, and it didn't come out instantly that that was the situation. With the other person, it wasn't revealed quickly that these savings bonds were not earning any income, and that this person wanted to benefit these family members. But there are a lot of things that can be done with charitable gifts. Again, it's necessary to listen to the client and hear what they have to say and try to find the right way to accomplish their wishes.
The next tool is the Charitable Lead Trust, and the Community Foundation does not currently do those. Tom's going to talk about them, but I would be curious if any of the nonprofits in the room are doing any charitable lead trusts. You are? Fantastic. I'd like to talk to you later to learn a little bit more.
And Vicki, you probably know a lot more about them than I do, because I haven't had a lot of experience with them. But if you think of it this way, it's somewhat the reverse of the charitable remainder trust. The income first goes to the charity, and then the remainder then goes to the individual beneficiary. So it's very simply a reverse of the charitable remainder trust. The lead goes to the charity.
It's an opportunity for the charity to be able to use the return on those assets during that period of time that you hold those assets. So other community foundations have talked about the value that they see in being able to, reap the benefits of the return on that asset during whatever the defined period of time is. But currently, that's not a part of our gift acceptance policy. So I don't know, Vicki or Paulette, if you want to offer any experience that you have with any you're working with.
I would just say that I always read that they're such a great thing for people, especially when the interest rates are low. Like right now, this is a perfect time to do lead trust, but we don't find very many people doing them.
Yes.
But the big benefit is once they do this, the balance, the goal is the balance in the trust then passes tax-free to their family. So it's a tax avoidance vehicle. But I only know of 2 that the Cancer Society has in the whole state of Pennsylvania.
I have 2. One is an individual who loves a particular stock, and he wanted to continue to keep that stock and also wanted to reduce his own taxes and find a way to eventually give it back to his kids, to his heirs. He's a retired guy, so the income now goes to a particular beneficiary organization that we're involved with, and at a point in time that will revert, the stock will revert back to family. He did it as a combination of really wants to support that charity, really wants to keep that stock. It was a good planning tool for him. The other is about a business, a family business, and they're using it as a way to put part of the assets of that business into the lead trust that gives income to more than one charity, and eventually it will revert. The ownership of that property will revert to the next generation of the family. So those are complicated planning tools that work well for those two particular cases.
So I've heard a couple of things. Being able to hang on to a particular stock or ownership in a particular company, to be able to benefit a particular organization or multiple organizations during a defined period of time, but then ultimately to pass on those assets to heirs tax-free. Any questions about the charitable lead trust? And what's great about Leave a Legacy is you have experts to look to when you have questions about these tools. Well, the last one is Dan again, and this one I'm so interested in because any of you who participated in a seminar that the Community Foundation hosted a few years ago, Brian Klontz thinks the Wealth Replacement Trust is such a cool opportunity. Dan's going to talk about.
Before I forget, I do have booklets for everybody that they can pick up when they leave. So you've cultivated this prospect. You've done the dance with this potential donor. You've gotten them to meetings, and they're interested in making a major gift to your organization. Right? And so there are a couple of stumbling blocks that typically come along for you to be able to close a deal. First of all, I might use this board if I may. So he bought a piece of property or a stock or whatever for $100,000, and now it's worth $1 million. Okay? And if he needs it for income, obviously, well, there's some opportunities here. But if he decides to cash it out, there's $900,000 here that's either ordinary income or capital gain, depending on what the asset is, right? And if he's a true York County, you say, I don't pay no taxes. All right? All right? So he's got a dilemma here. And again, you can put it in one of these. You can put it in charitable gift, whatever you want to do with it. But then, if he does that, he gets a deduction for it. All right. But what's the stumbling block here? Is that he's accumulated this money, and he doesn't want to give it up. Okay. I love your ideas, but this is for my family. Okay. So under current estate tax laws, if he dies, they get this $1 million, a step up in basis. There's no income tax due, or estate tax due, excuse me, but there is inheritance tax due. Okay? And that depends on what it is, whether it's, what's the 4.5%?
For children, grandchildren, what's called lineals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's higher.
4.5%.
Okay, all right. He doesn't like that idea either, okay? So here's what we do, all right? You give the money to the charitable organization. Right, that $1 million, you give that $1 million to them. And again, what the tax deduction is, it depends on what techniques you use. All right? But whatever the tax savings are for doing that, and I don't know what the numbers are, what depends on numbers are, but whatever they are, okay, use those dollars to go to a life insurance policy and buys a life insurance policy. Now, he doesn't own the policy. It's not his because we don't want to put the life insurance policy back in his estate. So he goes to see Tom and says, I want to set up an irrevocable life insurance trust. And so he makes a contribution of these tax savings to the irrevocable life insurance trust every year. Because I think you can carry these tax savings over a number of years, I believe, depending on the situation. He makes a contribution to the irrevocable life insurance trust, and they in turn purchase the life insurance. Why? Because the donor doesn't have any instance of ownership in that policy. It's owned by the Irrevocable Life Insurance Trust. And guess who the beneficiaries of this trust are? His children, okay, his spouse children, okay? So he's avoided taxation on this. He avoided taxation not only if he sold it, but also from inheritance. And the money that comes out of the life insurance policy, what was the first thing I said about life insurance? It's paid tax-free. And now the children, instead of getting a lesser amount after taxes of this, they get the full $1 million tax-free. And that's a wealth replacement trust is really what this is. And I always look at life insurance as the last piece of the puzzle. You've done the dance, you got them to the table, and they want to do this thing, but I don't want to give this money up. We have a solution for you. If you're insurable, and a lot of times they might do a second to die where both spouses are insured in those situations, but we set up the Wealth Replacement Trust, which is really an irrevocable life insurance trust, and put the life insurance policy in there, and then you can use, where do I get the money to do it? From the tax savings you get for doing this. Wow. Where do I sign? And that's really what happens. You look at the mosaic of charitable giving, the one piece that's missing all the time, I think, is life insurance. And that's the one piece that makes all these things work, that we can complete the thing because the whole concept and the donation, because now we're going to create something that was taxable, and now it's tax-free to your children, and they're going to get the money regardless. It's not subject to capital, not subject to taxes, not subject to market fluctuations. They're going to get the life insurance proceeds tax-free. And I think that's the neat thing about how to use the life insurance in this situation.
I have a question.
Yes.
About that. If you put the $1 million into a charitable gift annuity, and then you receive the payments from the gift annuity and use those payments to purchase the life insurance, is that a better way to go than doing a lump sum payment of?
The question was if they take the $1 million and put it in a charitable gift annuity and take the income from that, is that a better way of doing it? Let me use a legal term. It depends. It depends on what their income needs are. Maybe they've been drawing income off this, or dividends, or off it. So it all depends what the situation is. But again, with the tax savings, again, the tax savings can be used over a number of years. They may have so much charitable deductions they can't use it all in 1 year. Maybe limited to 30% or 50%. Maybe they can't use it all in 1 year. So it depends on what their situation is. Every situation is different, but possibly. And where I see that used as an aside, which is, well, you could name, as Tom was talking, you could name an IRA, the beneficiary of an IRA, a charitable organization. They could use them, and I come across people with a lot of wealth that don't need the income from the IRA, and it becomes a real stumbling block for them later on because they have huge tax liabilities later on. So maybe they take the income from the IRA and use that to buy a life insurance policy. If they spend down their IRA over their lifetime and use it to pay for a life insurance policy, the children end up getting a life insurance policy tax-free. Same concept works here in a sense, but how it works exactly, every situation is different. Again, so it depends whether you need the income or not. Other questions? Wow. All right. Thank you. Did I miss anything on that part of it that you want to add to it, Tom?
Nope, I think you
Good.
got
That's
it.
great.
And perhaps to close the loop, the final topic here was retained life estate. And this is where somebody would give their home, say, to a charity and retain a life estate in that real estate. It can happen. There can be tax benefits to it. It's not often utilized, but it is a possibility if you have somebody that is interested in it. The thing is just to be aware that it is a possibility at this point.
There's only one situation where the Community Foundation was approached by a donor to do a retained life estate situation. The point that I would make is that ensure that you have that conversation with the donor, that they are responsible for the upkeep and maintenance of the property, that it must stay in the condition that
You don't rake the leaves, Brian?
correct. The Community Foundation will not be out there maintaining the property. It's very important when you enter into that agreement. And of course, you're not entering into these agreements with folks you've just met. You've built relationships with your donors. And again, if this is something that the Community Foundation could be of assistance, we could definitely be a part of that conversation if you would like us to build your fund at the Community Foundation or to create your fund at the Community Foundation. Any questions about that particular item or any of the other items that we talked about today?
Brian, can I just talk a little bit more about how we're working together?
You sure could, absolutely.
I spoke with Brian a couple of years ago about, things that we could work on together. But it just never really seemed to fit until this one particular donor called. And he had a home in York County that he wanted to give to the American Cancer Society, and the best thing that we found to fit him was the American Cancer Society. So the Cancer Society was actually going to accept the property, but there were just a couple of little things in it that didn't fit just right. And so he was just, it just was so close to being the right fit, but it just wasn't. And so I called Brian and said, can we talk about how the Community Foundation may be able to take this property. He had a tenant in the property, in a part of the property. The Cancer Society would not accept a tenant if we were going to take the property. But we talked to Brian about whether or not the Community Foundation would be able to keep the tenant in place, because that was important to the donor, that at least for 6 months or so, the tenant would have guaranteed use of the property that he'd been renting for a long time. And so we sat down together with the donor a couple of weeks ago, and it just seems like he's from York County. He likes the idea of having a fund that has his name on it. He wants to support the American Cancer Society because this home was owned by a tobacco baron. And so he felt that giving back to the Cancer Society was a really great thing to do. So it was just neat the way all these pieces kind of came together, where he is very happy. The fund at the York County Community Foundation is just enhances the gift and makes it more personal. And one of the things, when I first started working with him was, I said, we have to make sure that no matter what you do, this gift fits what your needs are. This has to fit you. And so that was our premise the whole time going through as we figured out what was going to work. So this was the perfect gift to work with Brian. And it's been years that I've been trying to find the right gift, so you never know when that phone call is going to come, and it's just not quite right for us to take it. We've talked about gift acceptance policies and things like that. It doesn't fit. I mean, there are other ways to work with your donors to make it the right fit for them. So it's been really a great experience to work with them.
Well, thanks, Vicki. But I also want to say that the Community Foundation gives a lot of credit to Vicki, because this is the perfect vehicle. You're opening up a whole new avenue for the American Cancer Society, because now donors are seeing, wow, you're flexible. You can really make things happen. This wasn't possible, but now it is possible. Folks who are donors of the Community Foundation can see that there's a relationship. So it just creates so many new opportunities. And thanks for being so smart and being so willing to think outside of the norm and outside of the typical box for giving.
That was a win-win-win, we said. So.
What other questions do people have? None?
Ryan, what opportunities do you promote for individuals like myself, young family, and have not amassed the wealth that other donors have, but are mindful of giving? Which direction do you steer individuals, again, without a certain level of wealth, but a desire and a sufficient income to support that current giving?
Sure. So at the Community Foundation, because we are working with donors who want to endow their legacies, we're working with folks who either are creating a named fund or are giving annually to something that they care about, whether they're giving to the Fund for York County, to one of our fields of interest, or to any of the charities that have an endowed fund at the foundation. We're also working with young families who are working with their advisors, who are maybe planning for their legacies. Certainly they're thinking mostly about their children, their families, but also if they're involved in the community, they want to ensure that the charities that they're volunteering for, they want to show their children, their families, that this charity is a part of our family too. And so maybe engaging with your advisor to have that conversation about an endowed legacy through the Community Foundation is one of those opportunities. URIT is an opportunity where we have a group of people who are focusing on downtown revitalization and all of the opportunities of making York great, pooling their assets together to award a $20,000 grant each year to one great new thing. that shines a spotlight on how downtown has come around and is improving. There are so many different ways that the Community Foundation can work with people at whatever point in their life. It's not just about creating a fund at the $25,000 minimum. It could be any step of the way.
I met with a fairly young couple a few weeks ago, and they wanted to make sure they had a provision in their wills if their children were to predecease them and had no children. So there would be no children, grandchildren right down the line. A young couple, and I talked to them about the Community Foundation. And in fact, I just recently put that provision in their wills. Right now, it's a remote provision. There's no doubt in my mind, though, in the future, that they'll set up their own name fund with $25,000, and I think it will happen during their lifetimes. And but then they want to have their children, who are young right now, teenagers. They want them to be involved in the process. So there's different ways to do it. You could have a provision in the will for charity, even if it's a remote possibility.
And even if it's not at the Community Foundation, we're helping our entire nonprofit community to build its capacity and to ensure that it has the necessary resources to make York County a vibrant and wonderful place. So the fact that Leave a Legacy brings all of us together to ensure that we know how to do these things, as long as we're all working together, as long as you're thinking that way. You reached out a couple of years ago and you were talking about your child's birthday party and, doing things in a different way and having a party that gave to charity versus just bought gifts, thinking outside the box and supporting our community. That's probably what's most important.
And another point about the charities working with each other, I think it's a really good point. Again, I find there are usually multiple charities that are mentioned in somebody's will. It's not just one. But I think it's really good how the charities, I think in this area, are working with each other, just like being here today, and sharing ideas with each other. You help somebody else, one, it's fundamentally right, but you also help yourself because you can share those ideas with each other. And I think that's one of the great things about Leave a Legacy. It brings all the charities together.
I might add that Tom was the first chair of the steering committee for Leave a Legacy, and I followed him, and we could and so we've had a lot of continuity. This is an amazing organization when you compare it to Lancaster, Harrisburg, Lebanon, which doesn't really exist, quite frankly, with the Leave a Legacy program. And the reason is because people weren't willing to participate. I think the legal community, which I think is the basis for this organization being successful, has been really generous with their time and doing things what's best for the community. So you're kind of lucky to have that here in York County, and I think we've made a lot of progress with organizations, and we're still working. We've always got ongoing improvements going on, but this is part of what we're doing to make things better for everybody in York County. I wish the room had twice as many people in it, but that's the way it is.
Well, fortunately, we're being recorded, so pass on to your colleagues who aren't here that they can watch on the Leave a Legacy website, YouTube channel.
I hope I've made things simpler for people about the use of life insurance, and fortunately nobody left the room. That's an encouraging thing. I do have these booklets. I'll put these in the back here.
Before y'all get out, thank you so much.